2020. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Taxation is Theft Fest 2020. I'm Dre, one of your hosts from Drunken Disorderly Media. I am so happy to be back. Our next guest is Adam Kokesh. I'm sure many of you already know much about Adam, but if you don't, he is a pragmatic libertarian and combat veteran running for libertarian presidential candidate to localize the federal government. Before entering the race, he was a published author and longtime libertarian activist. He appeared in numerous films and starred in Adam versus the Man. Let's welcome Adam.
Hey, thank you so much, Dre. It's an honor to be included, but I'm afraid I'm in the wrong place. I thought this was Tit Fest, not Taxation is Theft Fest. And I had this like really amazing hour-long presentation planned, but just found out at the last minute it's a slightly different thing. Fortunately, I have my Dan Taxation Seth Berman hat handy here. You might know me as the Libertarian Party presidential candidate and Adam versus the Man. The yellow hat isn't normally here, but it does, as Dan Berman says, in his case, come off for debates. In my case, it comes on for Tit Fest. It comes on for fun, and I'm really honored to be joining y'all. And we're gonna talk. We got some fun stuff to talk about. And actually, off the top of my head, since I'm not talking about breasts for an hour, I'm thinking in the spirit of what Dan Berman represents and the message taxation is theft, that I'm going to be talking about three things today. Which are all really centered around my one hobby outside of politics and activism. And surprise, surprise, it's kind of activism too. And it's the homesteading, alternative construction. For me, this is, the American dream of being able to take a bare piece of land and build your homestead, to build your dream life. I don't think there's anything more, more American than apple pie other than homesteading. And it's something that I love in and of itself. I love the hands-on part. I love the construction. I love off-grid living itself. Like I'm here in the No Force One studios, parked at the Garden of Freedom. And when we are, properly referred to as the the allodial sovereign kingdom of the bountiful Garden of Freedom in perpetuity. And here I am known as His Royal Majesty, His Highness, King Adam Charles Kokesh I of Gardenia, founder of the great sovereign kingdom of the Garden of Freedom, and President the first of the United Nations of Freedom, which is jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things we're going to talk about today is micronations and the way that Dan Berman talks about going from Mexico to the United States to run for president, and that he changed his name lawfully without changing it legally, and just saying, because I say so, this is how it is. And this is a big part of micronations. And you guys know that my presidential campaign is based on running for not president, running on the platform of dissolving the federal government. You give me the ring of power, we throw it directly into the fire. Localization in a peaceful, orderly, responsible bankruptcy process where I resign on day one. And I've heard some criticisms of this as being a top-down approach. And it's like, well, yeah, but we're cutting off the top so that the bottom can rise up, and I still, stand by that, an approach doesn't necessarily have to fall into either top down or bottom up to be legitimate. But to the extent that what I'm proposing politically in localization is a kind of top down approach, micronations represent the bottom up approach. So we're gonna come back to that. So just to summarize, we're gonna do this talk over the next 55 minutes. In 4 segments. We're going to interrupt regularly. We've got Dre actually in charge right now, telling me what to do. I don't know if she needs to interrupt for whatever reason. I'm sure she will. But we've got Dre here for comments, for questions the whole time. So we're going to talk about homesteading. We're going to talk about micronations, and we're going to talk about civil disobedience. So and then we're going to go on a tour of the Garden of Freedom, and you will see over the course of the next hour how these things are related and why I'm so passionate about all of them. So Dre, before we get into my story of homesteading and the American dream that we are living here in Gardenia, are there any questions, comments, or requests from the chat?
We have one comment so far, other than welcome Adam from Craig Doherty. Thanks, Craig. Chris Dalton says, "You're right. You're right. Taxation is themed theft. Only federal employees and contractors who derive their income from the federal government are liable for the federal income tax. Also, a right cannot be turned into a privilege, license, tax, or fund or fee." Not sure what he meant there.
All right. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful sentiment. And I love that this audience in particular, I think, is especially ripe for this fun, unique presentation that we have planned for today. So to kick things off formally, I don't know, Dre, are you loaded? Are you stoned? And hi, how high are you? Yeah, you're good to go. All right, well then
I'm in Nebraska. Let's leave it at that.
So Dre will be periodically smoking green-colored tobacco for theatrical purposes exclusively throughout our presentation, on and off camera. Who knows? But like I said, I really, truly love the spirit that Dan Taxation Stuff Berman has in his activism, and what he's done for bringing us all together today. So first of all, my American dream, homesteading. I bought 11 acres here in the mountains in Arizona for $13,000, and that's actually for this area a little on the pricey side per acre because I have pretty good tree coverage. We have beautiful juniper trees here. When we do the walk around at the end of this hour, you're going to see my survivor trees, my favorite. I won't spoil it, but we have beautiful trees on the property. We're on a bit of a hillside. Or a hilltop, kind of a rise in the Ash Fork Bowl, as some people refer to it here in Juniper Wood Ranch, and I absolutely love it out here. So when I started building, we got out here and we started building from scratch. And I'd gone on a tour of the country just then. I don't know how it was, my fourth or fifth national tour. I don't say it by way of bragging. It's like, oh, look how many national tours I've done. But it started for me. Touring, speaking as an activist with Iraq Veterans Against the War back in 2007 when I got out of the Marines, moved to DC. So I've done a handful of national, sort of semi-national, regional speaking tours, both with Iraq Veterans Against the War and with my book Freedom, which I should have a promotional copy of here. Yes, look at this. We're organized on the No Force One Studios. Freedom. Anyway, you can get it free in every digital format possible at thefreedomline.com. And actually, there's an important part of this that really is underpinning, not undermining, my desire to live free. And this is in chapter 9, which is called the personal freedom. True personal freedom, chapter 9. And it talks about emotional slavery and health freedom and work freedom and happiness causes freedom. And a big part of this is agorism, right? And for those of you who don't know the term agorism, sometimes called agorism, as it's kind of easier to pronounce. I go back and forth on this. I've heard the pronunciation split. I like the sound of agorism, but agorism, like same thing with voluntarism. I prefer etymologically voluntarism, but voluntarism is just a better way of communicating that. But regardless, agorism, a term created by Sam Ed Konkin III in the New Libertarian Manifesto, describes this as counter-economics, conducting your economic affairs outside of the purview of government. Now, obviously, we're here under the banner of taxation is theft, and there are a lot of moral implications with this. You have a moral and patriotic duty to pay as little in taxes as you possibly can. That means more than breaking the law or tax evasion, just restructuring your life to pay less in taxes, to do your business under the table, to do barter, to not engage in commercial taxable exchange when you can do deals with people off the record in ways that can't be taxed, when you can use Gold and silver is currency, in a physical sense, not super practical, but Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, very practical, whatever works for you. If you want to ask questions about that financial side of things, happy to get into it. But to the bigger lifestyle focus, when I was driving around the country, I picked this spot very, very carefully, and there were a lot of different criteria for me in terms of climate, legal protections, and building codes, and then the community as well. So, excuse me. It is a little warm and dry up here, even though we're in the mountains. It is summertime up here. It's a little windy, a little dusty today, but we are at 5,200 feet above sea level. When most people hear Arizona, they think, saguaro cacti. My arms don't fit with like cactus arms unless I lean way back. The big cactuses that have the crazy, all sorts of big green arms and spikes and everything. The saguaros and desert and sand and that sort of thing. And then you look at Flagstaff in the mountains at 7,000 feet. They've got huge pine trees and skiing, and it's a different world up there. And so I'm a lot closer to Flagstaff than say Phoenix, and Phoenix is inhumane. Holy crap! Like regularly 110 plus degree days, and days during the summer where at night it doesn't even get below 90. I mean, that's a trip. Like that is a real like weird experience if you've never had it. Go to Phoenix at nighttime in the summer and walk around and be like, whoa, it's dark and it's hot. Like it's hotter than it is most of the time. It's light out. It's a bit unnerving, and it should be telling you people aren't supposed to live there. It's inhumane. Like it's not a good environment for human beings to live. And by the way, just as a sort of political rant aside here, a lot of the distortions in the natural distribution of human population, primarily the concentration of people in cities living in giant piles, asshole to belly button, as we would have said in the Marines, like that's not natural. Like, yes, cities, towns, people coming together, that's normal. That's a natural phenomena like anthills. But the density is a product of the distortion created by governments and central banks. If you didn't have that giant mountain of money, you wouldn't have the incentives for New York City to be as dense as it is. It would be a trading center, but it wouldn't have the overgrowth that it has today. And similarly, in cities all around the country, if you didn't have two senators bringing home the pork from D.C., funneling it through certain geographic areas associated with state capitals, you would have more dispersed populations even in the rest of the country. So here in Phoenix, here in Arizona, I'm not in Phoenix, don't get the wrong idea, but here in Arizona, Phoenix is one such place where I think that the people shouldn't live like that at all. Like if it wasn't for government intervention, same thing with Albuquerque. What would New Mexico be? My home state after California. It's really a federal enclave. If you got rid of the federal government, you wouldn't have Los Alamos Labs, Sandia Labs, the military bases. You wouldn't have the incentives for more major corporate presences like Intel, like defense contractors out there. What would you have in Albuquerque? You would have a gas station. You'd have an artist community in Santa Fe, a few pueblos, and the oil and gas industry in the Farmington area. And that, of course, aliens in Area 51 and all that. But aside from that, there wouldn't be much left to the state of New Mexico. The population would be a fraction of it is without that federal money. I would bet that without similar such major financial incentives, you wouldn't have the same concentration in Phoenix. And this is a big part of why I think this is so important. And right now, we are fighting back against these incentives, but also we are realizing the potential of a new era of technology. And as horrific as this forced unemployment crisis is, the corona crisis, that's what it really is. It's a forced unemployment crisis at this point. Whatever the evils of this are, one silver lining is the move towards working from home, towards greater efficiency and remoting things. That's awesome. Like if you're a libertarian, it's just a matter of efficiency. And I cover this in my show in two really extensive segments on the economic analysis on Adam versus the Man this week on Wednesday and Thursday. So if you want to check out my past episodes, go look up Adam versus the Man. Facebook, YouTube, regular podcast places, all of that. But there's this incentive for working in person in the past based on the prestige of it that, in these tall built, like New York is boned hard. And I don't mean by the virus, I mean by the work from home trend. The office buildings in Manhattan where people pay huge premiums to work in these skyscrapers and to be able to look down at all the peons, and now that just the incentive of stay home, stay distanced and sterile, doesn't weigh out. There's going to be a huge, major commercial real estate crunch coming up in New York City in the next couple of years. There's going to be a lot of pain and economic adjustment. But in this sense, the tendency to work from home or the inclination rather, and the shift to working from home and remoting things that can be remoted is a positive thing. And you might think, Adam, but then we go into digital bubbles. And it's like, yeah, for some things, but it means that what you do in person is then much more positive and enriching, and you're able to dedicate more time and love and energy and attention to things that matter in person, like building a home, like building a homestead, like starting a family. So with all of this in mind, we chose the mountains of northern Arizona as the place to settle down and start this homestead. And there's already a great community out here in the Juniperwood Ranch area. We have great neighbors for the most part, but it's a community of people who live libertarianism. I live down 3 miles of private dirt road. I built a road to connect my property to the existing roads because it didn't when I got here. And it's, if you hadn't figured it out, the name of the road is Ma Road. Yes, that's right. And before we came out here, I took the Earthship Academy program. I guess it's just the Earthship Academy, the 1 month program at Earthship Biotecture in Taos, New Mexico. And if you don't know what an Earthship is, really easy to remember that term. Look it up, Earthship. 2 words combined into one, Earthship. It's a patented term, unfortunately. I wish it was a generic, but all the credit due to Mike Reynolds as a pioneer in this kind of alternative construction. When we get up and do the tour, after the next 2 things that we cover here today, we're going to show you some of the the one Earthship style building that it's a very small 1-bedroom or 1-room thing here that's complete, and then a couple of projects in the works along with domes and geodesic domes. So when I got out here, I was already good friends with Ernie Hancock of Declare Your Independence. His website is freedomsphoenix.com. Great news aggregator. I encourage everybody to check it out. He saw what I was building out here and introduced me to the concept of geodesic domes. And actually, since he is going on the road now with a vaccine awareness tour on the Love Bus, which is extremely well timed, he is going to be, he loaned us his equipment, and it's only two little pieces. They're pretty big. A table chop saw that's set up specially to cut metal conduit, and a stamp press with a flywheel that stamps and presses the ends. So our company is Big Igloo Geodesics. We make geodesic domes and frames and other related products out here. You're going to see some of those on the tour here. And this is like the term Big Igloo, right? You guys all know this is the, well, for those who don't, there were a sort of group of, libertarianish oriented, definitely libertarian in spirit. I guess it was kind of it was a meme in the sense of like a discrete unit of thought, the boogaloo, as a term to reference a coming revolutionary war where the people are going to overthrow the government. And I mean, it's like, obviously I'm all for that in spirit, but I am, adamantly against it tactically as anything that would resemble war. But that's not what this is. Like, there's no serious. I mean, this is like as serious as the Naruto runs on Area 51 in Nevada. Wait, did I said Area 51 when I was talking about New Mexico? I meant Roswell. That's where the aliens actually landed. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I got my alien facts messed up. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. No, I believe in the, but just for the record, I don't believe in any of the alien conspiracy theories. I do believe that aliens are out there, but that we've had any contact or had them suppressed, no. But yeah, so this is a kind of tongue-in-cheek thing to say. The Boogaloo is the upcoming revolution that we're all getting ready for. But that started getting censored, like it was a thing, and it was very tongue-in-cheek. It's more of a humorous way. There's all sorts of great memes about it. So they started calling it the Big Igloo. The Big Igloo's coming, get ready for the Big Igloo. And a big part of the appeal for me of homesteading is that it is the peaceful revolution. It is, I'm just going to live over here my way, and leave me alone. And I don't need your systems. It's cool. Like I'll make my own butter if I have to. Gosh darn it. And that's I don't advocate from a strict perspective. Like, if you're a libertarian, you have to live this way to be living libertarian. There's nothing inherently coercive about wanting to live in a giant pile of people in a city and in an apartment building. I don't think people were meant to live like that. I don't. You're supposed to have, to be able to feel the dirt under your feet on a regular basis and be able to get your hands into the soil and interact with plants and trees and see birds and breathe mountain air, but to the extent that you realize taxation is theft, and there's so many other things in our normal modern economic lives that feed into the economic health of the state. I do think it is a good practice to say, whatever it is that you're doing, consuming, getting from others, paying for in your life that is associated with any kind of tax liability, but really anything to consider. Could I do this for myself? Could I be independent? Could I not depend on anybody else? Does exchanging with other people enhance or decrease the quality of my life? And when it comes to, hey, I'm working a 9 to 5, and I'm in this weird backwards race every morning to see who can get to their shittier jobs faster with a miserable commute. Like, why would you want to do that? I said, well, I make more money. Well, then you've been tricked into thinking that making money is what matters. Even in terms of just even things that are counted in dollars, in terms of actual value in your life. Like, I would rather be broke out here and be able to feed myself and not have to work for anybody else, and have that freedom for all work to be optional, rather than, I got a 9 to 5, and if I stop working, I starve. Screw that. So I think there's a huge revolution of lifestyle upon us, centered around self-sufficiency. Like, I cut my own hair. Why just I get a better experience of life out of that. It's more efficient. But why would you be dependent on something when you could be independent of it, when you could at least have that option? So the Earthship concept is a package of building designs that together create a completely self-sustaining off-grid home that recycles water, grows food for you, requires no heating or cooling whatsoever. And that's really something that, this is one of these really unexamined topics in libertarianism. How much construction and the housing industry, not just the market and the financing part of it, which is a big part of what drives up the price, but even before that, in licensing and planning and zoning and approval of designs, and then the subsidization of the lumber industry at the expense of earth-based thermal mass homes. Like in the Southwest here, it's crazy, especially in a place like Phoenix, where people did live in similar climates in Native American cultures, but they didn't live in stick frame stucco houses pretending to be adobe homes. No, they lived in actual adobe homes, because the earth mass of those buildings provided a natural heating and cooling mechanism that made those homes way more comfortable and way more efficient in an extremely hot and dry climate. Now, here in the mountains, this is technically a Mediterranean climate. In the summer, we have days that regularly get into the mid 80s. In the winter, we have some nights that get into the low teens. We have a couple weeks of snow every year. It's a little windy. We have some projects to build. I'm looking out the window going, oh man, I hope this dies down in the next 30 minutes before we do our little walkabout here. So this lifestyle is really, to me, an embodiment of libertarian values. And as I've said about what I'm advocating for with my presidential campaign and libertarianism in general, with decentralization in a voluntary society, I would not be advocating for these things and fighting for them if I didn't think that this was the natural course of human progress, if I thought we were fighting against the tide or some force of nature, yeah, I wouldn't be doing it. I think what we're doing is serving humanity by serving human progress, advancing humanity towards a better world. And one of the ways that I see this happening, although in the political sense, it's not really so appropriate for me to talk about, or I should say in the political context, because it's kind of in the realm of central planning, and I don't want to indulge in that, but I do have a fantasy about the preferences of the rest of the market, right? In a sense, we all want other people to have the same preferences as us. I mean, not for land, because I want to buy more land here before. Like, we already have a bunch of people who are trying to buy the lots around us, and I want to buy them first. I want to have a bigger piece of this. But in general, we want to see other people, share our values, and drive prices down and make it a normal thing for us to do whatever we're doing. And in that sense, like, I don't just want people to live this way and empower people to live this way. And it's a big part of what we do here at the Garden of Freedom, is help people make the leap to a homesteaded lifestyle, or maybe it would be better described as a sovereign lifestyle. Not sovereign citizen, but a truly sovereign lifestyle. If you're a citizen, you're not sovereign, right? So I'll let Dan Berman parse out those semantics, as he is so good at. So if you want to follow us, please go to at the Garden of Freedom on Instagram. On Instagram, that's the main place I'm doing. I have 2 new accounts for the things I've been discussing here. One is Big Igloo Geodesics, and that's just Big Igloo Geodesics. We are really easy to find. We got lucky with these names. Big Igloo Geodesics on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, although Instagram is the better gallery for both of these accounts. We have Comment Jim Freedom, who co-hosts Adam versus the Man with me, is also, our chief operating officer of Big Igloo Geodesics. And with the Garden of Freedom account, we also have people who live out here who are just posting all sorts of fun stuff every day. So please check out those galleries. And if you want to get more involved, send me an email, adam@thefreedomline.com. So it's a little longer than I wanted to go for the first segment. Dre, any comments or questions to follow up on that?
Oh, I've got all sorts of comments. But the comments from the fans, we've got some comments from people on as far as the pronunciation. Jordan Ross says voluntarism sounds better in their opinion. Not sure.
I don't think it sounds better, but it's more clear and it's a better way to communicate it, and that's what counts.
So say them both.
Voluntarism, voluntarism.
Yeah.
Etymologically, voluntarism seems more appropriate, that you would drop the Y, but it sounds too much like volunteerism also, so it's easily confused for that. So for practical reasons, I prefer to use the term voluntarist, and we'll support the usage of that.
All right, and then the person after that says Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover used the word volunteerism. Yeah, but see, voluntarism is a form of volunteerism. I mean, it's the same thing. You're doing something.
No, I see. Voluntarism describes, as we know, the philosophical, ethical framework of a voluntary society, which is one that adheres to the ethical standards. Volunteerism is a more active state rather than describing a condition. It is describing an activity of promoting people volunteering. They go hand in hand. They are connected to the same spirit of love and respect, but they really are different dynamics. At least the way that I use those terms.
Yep. And then let's see here. Carl Crambeck says hello. MJ Coombs says, Adam, we need you to march in Boston Parade again this year.
Was it the Straight Pride Parade? I don't think they'll have me back after I pumped them last time. That was so much fun. It's funny how people hated on me for that. And like, first of all, it wasn't a thing worth hating on. It was like a really dumb, tongue-in-cheek, like alt-right kind of weird event. And it was like, they invited me to speak. I'm going to speak. Like, I'll speak to groups that more directly disagree with libertarianism in order to preach to people who don't get our message. But there is a certain element that people are disdainful of with a straight pride parade making fun of gay pride. And so I called them out on it, like, and I punked them. And most people who saw that speech and then trying to take my microphone away on stage understood what was happening. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, but what I'm looking forward to this election cycle, whether I'm the nominee or not, is organizing protests to retake the debates and actually shut them down with civil disobedience blockades, both with in person on foot, with formations of veterans, and with vehicles, with Truckers for Freedom blocking, the intersections and, for blocks around whatever venues they end up doing the debates in. They had them scheduled before coronaphobia hit. I actually had the Commission on Presidential Debates schedule, not printed out, but in the modern equivalent, screen captured on my cell phone and bookmarked and marked on my calendar. And I was getting ready with the cities getting ready, but I don't think they're going to be sticking to that schedule now. So these are not difficult. These are not difficult protests to organize in that sense.
Good. I was going to say, because when I heard about these getting organized to begin with, I was so happy and like, what a great idea, right? If we can't participate, it's not happening.
All right. So any questions? I'm like over time. I'm behind my own agenda here.
Nope. Okay, go for it. We don't have any more questions.
All right. Cool. So the next section of my presentation today, I want to talk about civil disobedience, and this is a very broad topic, but it's a really important one. And right now, we are at a very strange point in American history where it's kind of like alcohol prohibition, right? But now it's a forced unemployment crisis. Like, that's what this is, and Ron Paul wrote a column in March called The Coronavirus Hoax. And I did a podcast a month earlier by the same title. So I hope Ron Paul has studied my work. That would be nice. I doubt it. But I was certainly ahead of him on this one point. And, I've been proven right over and over again with this. But what's beautiful is that most Americans don't buy the justifications for the shutdowns, and they are engaging in civil disobedience in one form or another. It's most Americans. Even though most Americans still believe in the shutdowns or lockdowns to a certain degree, first of all, a huge chunk of Americans are going to be civil disobedience activists unintentionally, because federal laws and state laws and county laws and city laws under the declarations of emergency don't even match up. And so you're going to be disobeying one of them, right? So it is a very strange situation where polarization is high and trust in government is extremely low. Confidence in government is extremely low. And I think it's really important for libertarians to say, yes, let us cheer on our compatriots who are not libertarians, like the paddle boarders in California, the surfers, the hairdressers, the parents playing with their kids in parks. This is an incredible time to be alive, to see just authority losing its power, and it's so ridiculously, laughably unenforceable. If you're not allowed to go see your friend in Michigan, because they actually, for a period there, I don't know what the current status is, said that you couldn't do social house-to-house visits. All you had to do was tell a cop if you got pulled over, "Oh, I'm going to visit my grandma who's immunocompromised to deliver her food." And it's like, I had a note from my grandma, so I got out. Like, really, like, they can't enforce that much with this. This isn't a very well coordinated pandemic in that sense. I think it is going to play very well for the people and bad for government in the long run. There are going to be people who came out of this with their power grabs and their money grabs and can retire to their private sex islands and get away. But in terms of the system, we are fighting back, and I think we are going to take a chunk out of it in doing so. So civil disobedience is something that I've engaged in for a long time. If you don't know my record, I don't know, I guess go search my YouTube channel for most popular videos. You can see my shotgun civil disobedience in Washington, D.C. You can see the dance party at the Jefferson Monument. Those are the two that I'm most known for. What I get accused of often from people who are familiar with my record or see me engage in civil disobedience is that I'm brave. And I don't think I really am. I don't think I'm especially brave. I mean, unless courage is something that you can practice and develop and intellectualize and create for yourself through deliberate self-programming. And I know there's a lot to unpack there, but let me start by looking at the risk-reward analysis as a way of explaining what a lot of people see in terms of my civil disobedience, which is that in the risk-reward calculation, a lot of people see arrest as a risk, and it just goes whoop, all the way off the charts. Oh my God, I might get arrested. And to them, in the risk-reward calculation, it's the same as, oh, I might die. And they don't bother to break it down and say, well, okay, it's a misdemeanor. I could get arrested. They could hold me overnight and I'm going to get bailed out. Okay, I'm going to do an overnight in jail. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, there's a slight risk of dying associated with that, of health risks, et cetera, et cetera. But like, is it really that bad? It's definitely a quantifiable cost. I've done altogether, let's see, my shotgun got me 4 months in jail. I did 10 days in Texas year before last. I've done a handful. I did a week in Philly. I've done a handful of weekends and maybe a couple dozen overnights. I think we calculated that it adds up to about 6 months of jail time altogether for what I've been able to accomplish as an activist as a result of that, and being able to promote the libertarian cause and build a name for myself. Totally worth it in a heartbeat. But even for low scale activism risk stuff, like what we're proposing for the Retake the Debate civil disobedience, they're going to arrest you for trespassing, misdemeanor, citation, ticket. You could probably just pay, negotiate it down so that it's not even a misdemeanor. Pay a citation for a couple $100s and get it over with. By the way, for this action, we're going to be negotiating this in advance with law enforcement in the area, wherever it is. So it'll be a very extremely low risk arrest. And I understand, yes, there's a risk of any interaction with law enforcement. I would generally caution people now, as I do on my show on a regular basis, when we're talking about the texture of America under coronaphobia and enforcement, that police officers are somewhere on the scale of 5 to 10 times more dangerous than they normally are. And a lot of them are more chill. I don't want to deny that, where they're just like, yeah, we were not really like. I've heard some crazy stories. I brought you a couple stories with Adam versus the Man interviewing, for example, Stephen McClure, who was pulled over with guns and drugs in Georgia. Really bad spot to be searched with his vehicle with guns and cannabis and firearms. And the cops just said, we're not going to bother processing you for this, so we can't take in evidence right now. So since it's a victimless crime, we're going to let you go. They in that case, they didn't want to be chill. They really did, mess with them over the course of a traffic stop. But it's certainly a lot better than how it normally is. On the flip side of that, cops understand that the mechanisms of accountability that they normally face aren't really there. Or aren't nearly as strong. If cops do something bad right now, it's harder to hold them accountable oftentimes. The mechanisms of government, the court systems being slowed down, a lot of courts not being in session or having very challenging schedules, doing things remotely. It means that a lot of those mechanisms that serve as a check on police power aren't as strong as they normally are. And they have a lot more excuses to harm individuals with the various state declarations of emergency and all the crazy things that they can enforce if they feel like it or not. But that risk needs to really be quantified. And I see go to jail for. I understand if you have people who are dependent on you, if you have a family, it's a totally different equation. Going to jail for 10 days, not really an option. Going to jail for 4 months, not responsible. But doing an overnight for an arrest for something in protest to make a statement, where you're not threatening your livelihood, it's still a very quantifiable risk. That's not that big a deal that really deserves to be examined in the risk reward calculus. So the other thing is that on the reward side, right? Most people don't see the implications and extrinsic values of standing up for freedom, and maybe aren't in a position as I am to kind of capitalize on that, right? Where I have a business that benefits from public exposure. It's, of course, that's true about most businesses, right? Who doesn't want advertising? And in my case, it's very directly related. And when I was doing Adam versus the Man and really focusing on building the audience years ago, doing civil disobedience and man on the street videos in Washington, D.C., every time I would go get arrested, and most of them, like I said, most of my arrests are really petty things, or even cite and release kind of events where you get a ticket, or a lot of, actually, I should point out, a lot of what I've done in civil disobedience has not yielded arrests, and that's really cool too, to be able to curse in front of a cop in Middleborough. And like, they passed a law in this town of Massachusetts when I was living in DC, where they said it was illegal to curse. So of course we went up there and very, very politely cursed at cops. Like, excuse me, officer, would describing this as a fucking police office be a problem? Would describing this as the weather as shitty offend you sufficiently to issue me a fucking citation for cursing in your goddamn presence? Just like things like that. And there's some fun video with that as well. And I did not get arrested for that. So there are a lot of things where that defiance in civil disobedience, where the arrest, you're more likely to get away with it than not. And doing everything we can to push the limit that way is so important as well, just to build a spirit in a culture, a paradigm of defiance of bullshit authority. And every way that we can do that, especially right now in the coronavirus era, the corona season, the age of coronaphobia. I don't know. Anyway, we have this beautiful opportunity to encourage civil disobedience that has extremely low arrest risk. And in some cases now, the American general public is seeing their whole risk reward calculus differently, because the risk is you go out of business and you can't feed your fucking family anymore, right? Like, that's what this represents. And so the risk is you might get a citation. You might have to talk a cop out of shutting down your salon. They might send a SWAT team and you get a viral video out of it and you're a national hero now, like the salon owner in Texas. And really, God bless her for doing that. That was amazing. But she's the exception, because most state and local governments don't want the negative PR that they got there for busting her. So yeah, I don't see them able to enforce so many of these stay-at-home orders in a way that just reveals that the government is mostly a paper tiger, certainly in its authority, and all you have to do is declare it to not have any authority of you to make yourself free. And in all the ways that I've brought civil disobedience into my life and my lifestyle, I've always been, it's just, yeah, I'm a free man. This is how I live. And part of what we're doing here, even in homesteading, was to that effect, where when we got out here, we were like bragging about, we're doing this and without a permit, and and really what we were saying legally was that the zoning doesn't apply to us here. And if we had stuck to that and been peaceful about it, we might not have had any kind of confrontation. But they threatened us with hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines, even for camping on our own land. Yeah, without a residency zoning approval, whatever the heck it was that they wanted. And they, we fought back. We put this guy on blast. And I can't say too much about the off the record conversations, but they have gotten to a point now where it's complaint only for enforcement out here. So if nobody complains about what we're doing and we're not bothering anybody else, then they can't bother us. And we're about as free as you can get here. So the civil disobedience is really just living free when it crosses the silly lines that government throws up to say you're not free. And the more we can have a rational analysis of how we cross those lines and say, no, I'm not going to acknowledge your authority. I'm going to live free. And the better off we are. And I think this is really critical to moving humanity forward. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to an audience today that is hopefully receptive to this and can put this knowledge to good use. Dre, any feedback? How are we doing with the comments?
Well, Mr. Berman himself chimed in real quick.
All right, there he is. Fucking fucks. Yes. It's funny. We had a little fucking incident, and I believe words are words.
Exactly. But Adam, we should start the tour because I want to see it, and we're running short on time.
Oh no, we're going to the hour, right? We got 14 minutes.
Well, we go till about 5 till.
Oh, okay. Well, it's only a few minutes, so let me just end before we do the tour. Then, if there no burning questions, nothing critical, gaps, even Dre, anything you wanted as a follow up to anything we've covered so far?
Oh gosh, there's so much.
Too many. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well. I look forward to talking to you guys more with your media production, helping you grow your platform with Drunken Disorderly. So anything that maybe we can keep talking, and this intro presentation can encourage people to get deeper in on the subject. And for anybody who wants to get deeper in with me, I will give my own plug here. Excuse me. We are doing Adam versus the Man for 2 hours, 5 days a week, live, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time from right here in this rocking chair. And we take comments on YouTube, especially super chat comments. You throw $1 in the tip jar, you get to the top of the line. We will interrupt the show for you and answer all questions. So if anybody wants to get into anything like this, we take the time, especially now with 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, to really get appropriately deep into these topics. I understand that this is a really fun introduction overview to these topics. None of these are you're not gonna watch me talk about homesteading for 20 minutes and then just start looking for land online. But that's how you do it, you got to think these things through. I hope this is a good introduction that inspires people to live more by libertarian values in all the ways that we're talking about. But yeah, and if anybody wants to get hooked up with my real estate agent, send me an email, adam@thefreedomline.com. It's Ernie Hancock's wife, Donna Hancock. She's amazing, can help you get parcels right in this area, right next to mine. There are websites. If you look up Ash Fork, Arizona, start looking at land. It's relatively inexpensive. It's very easy to finance because you can't steal it. It's hard to screw it up. You can't lose it. So there are a lot of people offering owner financing. This might be a really good time to buy. Probably not in the sort of mainstream housing market, but in terms of rural land, there are a lot of people who have lots out here as personal investments. There's been a rush to liquidity around the corona crisis in terms of people who are desperate for cash and unemployment, liquidating assets. So there might be some really good deals out right now for buying land, people willing to finance. If you have confidence in your income, you can do something incredible. We just had our friends, the Yeeples of Canada We Talk 420, Pastor Peter and Helen Yeeple, and they got a piece of land out here where they put $250 down and $250 a month for a 10-acre lot. So it's very, very accessible. So the last thing I want to talk about is micronations. And this is a subject that I've been a fan of for a long time, and never really put my finger on the way that I have until just recently. But you might have heard of Liberland, a little slice of land that is unclaimed in Europe. where Vitiedlica is creating a new sovereign minimalist state, saying that, you know, we're going to have an area with the government where the purpose is to keep other governments out, to be recognized just for the purposes of that. I'm a big fan of the story of the Conch Republic, which was kind of a comedic secession from the Florida Keys, and where it's a great story. Look up the Conch Republic. Molossia, you can look up just micronations on Wikipedia. There's a great list there. I'm going through it myself right now, reading about all of these different wonderful examples of people who just said, yeah, we have this land, we're declaring our sovereignty. This is how the United States was formed. They declared their independence, and they won. Are you going to make us fight a war for our independence here? So we're working on the exact mechanisms of doing it, but we have declared this land here to be sovereign. I can't remember the whole title. We just put this together, and you'll see why. A big part of this is saying, well, you can do it, why can't I do it? A big group of people can't do it, why can't I as an individual do this? If you can declare your independence, if you can have a country, why can't I do the same thing right here? And it's kind of making fun of the idea of states themselves. So I think that the full title of this sovereign state here is the Sovereign Allodial Kingdom of the Bountiful Garden of Freedom in Perpetuity. It's better. I've got it written down. We just reformulated it. I know we've only got 3 minutes.
Yep.
All right. So it's coming. I know, Dre, you want to get me on schedule here. So here we go. We're gonna pick this up. I'm gonna turn. Let's see. And here, do I turn? How do I do this in this one? Can I turn my camera around by double tap? I guess we can in this. All right. So we're gonna do it. We can do it selfie style.
Dude, it's your camera.
Yeah, but it's so in Streamcast. Oh, there it is. Flip. There's a flip button. I mean, I'm doing so many different versions of this right now. Yeah. You know, it's hard to get. You know, it's Zoom and Google Chat and StreamYard, all that. So yeah, I got to be able to go right back and show you what I wear out here on a regular basis. My civil disobedience hat. So yeah, this is the rest of the bus for those who are wondering here. No Force One. It's been a blast touring in this. And by the way, I was a little bothered when Dan Berman himself, when we were touring, put one of his black and yellow Taxation is Theft stickers on our bus. But it's been here so long, it turned to black and white, and now it goes with the design of the rest of No Force One.
And just tag anybody's vehicle.
Yeah, right. Okay, so give me just a second here. I'm going to turn the brightness on my screen all the way up so I can see what's going on. I'm going to flip the camera again, and now you can see there's my shipping container with my workshop where we make the dome parts. Got our parts here. You can see it's pretty green out here. The brown part is where we've cleared this area for construction. But if you look out, it's really beautiful here. This is the 28-foot geodesic dome that I built myself in Ernie's shop, and a tire wall for it to make an Earthship style building. We've got another 15-foot geodesic dome over there that's going to be a greenhouse. This one that's shelled in with cement that's about to be a one-bedroom unit. We've got our little geodesic swing over there. This is the camp kitchen. You can see it's another tire wall thermal mass building. It's really just a very cool building concept. So before we go upstairs, you can see another greenhouse we're putting together and our outdoor trellis garden, cement station getting ready to spring into action. But I told you I would show you my favorite trees. We have these beautiful junipers out here, and we have these amazing survivor trees. I don't know if the lighting is good for you guys, but I hope you can see just what happened here. That this tree got knocked over sideways and just decided, screw it, we're going to keep growing. No better example of life finds a way. I've got a handful of trees like this here. I call them my survivor trees. They were cable dragged about 50 years ago because as an invasive species that had only been here for a few hundred years, the human beings who brought in the cattle so that they were an invasive species in the way of the grass for the cows. So they just cable dragged wide parts of this area, knocked these trees over. So here we
Michael
go up
Adam
on.
is in Arizona.
Yep, near Ashbrook. So here we go up on the roof. You can see the bus there, No Force One, the Freedom Trailer, and just a quick view from the roof here. And as is normally the case, just beautiful, epic sunsets here every night, and the most wonderful place to watch them from. There in the background, just for point of reference, right there is Mount Williams in the distance, and out there is Picacho Butte. So, with that, any last comments, questions, concerns from the chat, Dre?
Let's see here. You've got all sorts of support in the comments from, let's see here. Where did it go? Victims of Family Law for Kokesh. And
All
then
right.
Marcus, your dude, is in there telling people how to get a hold of you for an interview. And I will be getting a hold of you soon so that we can talk some more about this stuff on my show if you'd like.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dre. And thank you to everybody for joining us, for everybody who's watching this after the fact. I hope you'll share this video, get more people in on this beautiful conversation that Dan Berman has put together, especially in the age of coronaphobia when we can't be doing our normal libertarian get-togethers. I'm really grateful for opportunities like this and for the work of people like Dan, who does such a great job with branding and merchandising and getting an uncompromised, principled message of libertarianism out there. So again, thank you to everybody who made this possible and to everybody for joining us and sharing. Mwah, peace and love, y'all.
See you later, Adam. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Taxation is Theft Fest 2020. I'm your host, Dre, from Drunken Disorderly Media. Our next guest is Joe McHugh. Joe's an independent candidate for president of the United States. He's a Marine veteran, entrepreneur, and author of the book Hijacking America. In his book, he describes 7 years of government entrapment in which he dodged FISA and Patriot Act enabled lures for money laundering, tax evasion, statutory rape, child pornography, illegal Bitcoin sales, email and telephone interference, denial of employment, and more. Based on the government's belief he stole classified information related to 9/11 being an inside job. Let's welcome Joe.
Hey, Dre, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I think I'm going to work on shortening that intro. I guess.
Well, that's a lot of BS to deal with. Damn.
It's a lot, and it seems like it's still going. I had to switch computers after I completed the pitch for today. As I was getting ready to get, to get online, the camera stopped working and the mic stopped working. So, sometimes this is a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to secure communications, and privacy is a Third Amendment right. The whole Constitution under the Patriot Act has been rendered null and void. And that's why I'm excited to share with you and to chat with you and the audience about how we can restore liberty in America by ending the Fed and going green instead.
Fantastic. I can't wait to hear how.
So how's your day going? You hanging in there so far or what?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a long day and a half. You know how convention goes. It's balls to the wall, whether it's virtual or in person. So it's no different today than any other time.
Props to you for, for the patience and for, showing enthusiasm anyway. I mean, whether you're hosting or talking or listening or asking, it's a lot of work. So, and I can see that you put in a lot of work on your face, and but you look fantastic. And I'm hoping that we can keep you entertained here as we go through this. Also, want to thank Dan, the Taxation is Theft Berman, for putting this on. To put together a conference, 40 speakers of live streaming, concurrent live streaming in 2 days is amazing. And, I think it's fantastic that there are that many people who are so excited about liberty that they want to speak about it for an hour. So that's a good thing for America. And hopefully we can translate that into a victory this year in November. And I think the conditions are ripe for it. So what I'd like to, do now, if you're good with it, Dre, is to pull up my slides and kind of just walk you through it. And, if you have any questions as we go through this, just jump right in and answer, and ask away. So my objective is to help you understand, hopefully make what appears to be a complicated issue and boil it down to simple, actionable steps that we can restore liberty and, get back to our constitutional values, get back to doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. All right. We need to share screen here.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and my application window, and I'm going to jump over to this, and I'm going to present. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
And you can see the pitch deck. Okay, cool. All right. So again, this is a presentation to end the Fed and go green instead in order to restore liberty in America. So imagine for a moment that you lived in any part of the United States or around the world, and you had the best, fresh air. It smelled great. It's kind of like when you're out in the middle of the park or the middle of nowhere. If you notice how the air just smells better when you're out there. So imagine that feeling of that fresh air and knowing that you can breathe in, you can take a big glass of water and know that it doesn't have lead or PFAS. You know that it's perfectly healthy. The food tastes great. You can eat the food without being worried about toxins or pesticides or whatever. You can actually afford a good living, and you do so, and you know that when you work an hour today, your money's going to be worth the same thing into the future, even 50 years into the future when you're ready to retire. That to me is what liberty is, right? That to me is what our country is based on. And I want to be clear. I believe that America has the best set of founding documents in the world. We have a Declaration of Independence, which grants our natural rights to life, liberty, and love in a way that I don't know that any other set of documents or declaration anywhere else in the world does. Our Constitution protects those rights to life, liberty, and love. And by the way, I know it's pursuit of happiness, but what is pursuit of happiness if it's not the freedom to love however you wish to express your love? So I summarize that as life, liberty, and love. Our Constitution puts in place a separation of powers and checks and balances, and we have a Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments to that Constitution, which grant the absolute rights of the people. Now, most people don't know this, but without the Bill of Rights, we wouldn't have a country. We wouldn't have the United States of America. After our founding fathers, they fought the British. We won our independence. We drafted a Constitution, and the Constitution itself, there was not a quorum. There were not enough states who were willing to sign the Constitution without also protecting the rights of the people. And so the Bill of Rights is absolutely critical. And right now, I think you'll agree after you see the end of this, after you see this presentation, that under the Patriot Act and under secret FISA courts and other things that have happened in the last, let's call it 20 years, especially since 9/11, but really it's, I think, 40 years and counting, the Bill of Rights has been undermined, if not overthrown, and as a result, it's rendered our Constitution null and void. And that's really what this is all about. Now, I believe that I'm not alone in this thinking, because otherwise, we have 70% of America who's sick and tired of the two-party system. Pretty much everybody recognizes, except for the hardcore R's and D's on both sides, that the two-party system does not represent the everyday American. And I think that's where this stat comes from. I believe it's a Gallup poll that showed that 70% was ready for a third option, or rather just an American liberty-based constitutional option. So what does this look like? And why do I feel like we actually can win? The Libertarian candidate this year can actually win the presidency. And the reason why is because we have a president who has abused power. I think it's pretty indisputable that that's the case. But the Democratic alternative and Vice President Biden, he's the one that first presented the Patriot Act. And the Patriot Act is what created and enabled and empowered a president like Trump. And so we basically have a choice between the Patriot Act and the Patriot Act. And, that doesn't sound like much of a choice to me. And so as a libertarian, what we are able to do this year is to say to the American people, listen, in the last 20 years, things have not been going the right way. And if you're black or brown, then you can say, listen, I don't know about you, but I haven't had my constitutional rights respected since the dawn of the country. And they would be right to say that. Again, we have the best set of founding documents, the best Constitution, the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, and that is what makes America great: liberty. And if we are going to really make America great again, we need to restore liberty in America. And in doing so, the majority of Americans will be on board, and we will end up with a winning coalition of constitutional conservatives, liberty-minded Republicans and Democrats, military veterans, intelligence officials who've pledged an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I believe we'll have environmentally progressive Gen Z and millennials on board. We'll have women and minority groups who've been treated unfairly for as long as they can remember. These are people that share a common bond of deprivation of liberty and a desire to restore liberty, not just for ourselves, but for everybody, because we all benefit when we do that. So before I get into exactly how the plan to do this, I just want to share with you a little bit about my personal liberty story. It started when I was a kid. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, and we watched the crack epidemic of the 80s and 90s unfold on the evening news on a nightly basis. And it was the same people. It was the black families of Detroit that were destroyed, not only in Detroit, but in urban areas around the country. And, I asked my parents, well, why is this? Why is this happening? And the answer I got was, well, we don't know, Joe. It's just the way it is. And so to me, that meant that if this was happening, that's because somebody wanted this to happen. Somebody was actually making money off of this. And I didn't know it at the time, but, I do believe that our intelligence community is involved in drug trafficking. I think there are too many issues, right? There are too many leaks that suggest that may be the case. There are too many coincidences in terms of conflicts of interest relative to the way the law is set up and who benefits. So as a result, I decided I was going to fight the fight. I ended up going to Michigan State, got a degree in international relations and political economy. I learned about the intersection of politics and economics and money. And it was my first job right after I graduated from Michigan State that I was working as a financial advisor at an investment bank, and the Twin Towers were hit. The two planes flew into the Twin Towers, and that was devastating. To me, I know most of America everybody was traumatized by that. I was traumatized for a different reason, because in the year prior to that, during the Bush-Gore debates, President Bush lied about nation building. He projected onto Vice President Gore that President Bush didn't believe in nation building. But this was totally unprompted. And if you go back and look at the YouTube video, you could tell that he was lying, which meant that we were going to war. And that's what I shouted up to my buddies when they were upstairs playing World of Warcraft. And by the way, I write about all this stuff in my book, Hijacking America, Liberty Strikes Back, which you can see, you can check out for yourself at hijackingamerica.com. So when those towers came down, I was upset because to me, only the United States could succeed in an attack on the United States of this degree. And it took me 8 years from that point to commit to joining the Marine Corps, because it just seems like such a tall task. But ultimately, if I was going to be true to my word, true to what I felt was kind of a reason for being, to fight the good fight, then I needed to become a Marine in order to learn how to lead and be led. And so in 2008, I ended up becoming a Marine at 30 years old, a Marine Corps officer. I was a logistics officer. I went to Asia and to Africa, and it was in the second deployment as a logistics officer that I made a decision that became, let's call it, formative for the rest of my life. I ended up authorizing alcohol in violation of unit order and discovering that one of my Marines was a suicidal alcoholic. I got lucky. We didn't lose the Marine, and I was able to call up my commanding officer, say, listen, sir, I made a mistake. This is the situation. And the commanding officer took myself and my gunnery sergeant off the ship. It wasn't so cut and dry. I mean, really what happened was my gunny authorized alcohol. I wrote him up, but I didn't turn him in. And as a result, I ended up going along with it after a bit of time. And it was a comfort-based decision. And we learned in the Marine Corps never to make comfort-based decisions. And I learned the hard way. So that was the lesson that I learned, is that never to make comfort-based decisions. The rules are in place for a reason, and that we need to make sure our rules and our laws are aligned for the American people so that we can make sure that we have liberty through and through. So after I got out of the Marine Corps, and actually what happened was that I felt so badly about what I did that I ended up taking my phone into a top secret room and I turned it on. But before I did that, I deleted everything on my profile. So now the Marine Corps is thinking, okay, what is this officer doing here? He deleted everything off his profile. He took a phone. The guy, they didn't know, right? But I was feeling horrible. I wanted to get out of uniform, and I knew that was a way to do it, but I didn't want to go to prison. So I got rid of everything. I didn't view anything. Anyway, what ended up happening, and I thought that I would end up getting an investigation or something for a short period of time, but I never received a warrant. And instead, what ended up happening is that the government had numerous people trying to live with me or monitor me. I had black FBI surveillance vans outside my house. I had one woman come in saying that she was an Air Force, had an active Air Force clearance, and then she tried to ingratiate herself with me by saying that she believed that 9/11 was an inside job. The executive director for Air Force investigations looked at my LinkedIn profile right at when the start of all this was happening without turning off, so I could see who was looking at my LinkedIn profile, because it shows if you have a certain level of privacy. And so I knew that this was going on, and I just hoped my plan was to provide as much transparency as possible so that they can complete their investigation and be over and done with. Unfortunately, that never really quite happened. And instead, the Patriot Act enabled them to do exactly what the IRS entrapment tool just reauthorized, to monitor, surveil, obstruct, and interfere, everything you can think of, basically prevent you from making any progress in your life and steal your future. That's what they did since 2012. And I ended up getting into business school by not telling a soul about it. I didn't use any military references. I changed my most recent resume structure by volunteering to do some Hurricane Sandy relief so that I could tell a positive story on my application, as opposed to the negative story related to the Marine Corps. And I could also use different references. So that's how I was able to get out of that entrapment. In business school, I worked on launching a company called Earth Loans, and the objective was to undermine oil revenue, because in my studies, I learned that independent studies on my own, I learned that it was oil revenue, in my opinion, that is controlling, the oil bank cartel is controlling America, and keeping us in these wars overseas and preventing us from transitioning to something that's clean, green, and healthy and wealthy, so that America can be free again. So I ran for office in 2002 after the Twin Towers came down for the first time. And then on an environmental and constitutional platform, I ran again in 2014, again within the Democratic Party, this time rather than a conservative Dem, as a liberty Dem, to test the message of liberty within the Democratic Party, and found out that they were receptive. I mean, gay rights, women's rights, legalizing cannabis, those are all liberty issues. So that's my background. That's how I got started with my liberty mission. And I just want to point out, that again, let's imagine that we have clean air, right? We feel great. Well, unfortunately, 43% of America, 441 million Americans, has air that causes asthma or premature death or lung cancer. This is a American Heart and Lung Association study. 141 million Americans, 43% have unsafe air to breathe. I mean, that's the most basic liberty issue I can think of. Liberty is fresh water, right? Liberty is knowing that you're going to drink water and you're going to be okay. Unfortunately, most people in the United States, we're looking at about 20 to 25 million people with lead exposure. And then most people is the phrase that was used by the Rhode Island Department of Health with regard to PFAS. Most people in the country have a chemical that is used on your nonstick pans. It's now in our water, and now the chemical causes cancer. It causes immunodeficiency problems, premature birth, developmental and reproductive issues, learning disabilities, mood disorders, cholesterol, blood pressure, hearing and memory loss, joint muscle pain. I mean, this is just from the air and the water so far, right? Then you put in the food, and you've got another 141 million Americans that are either obese or are coming out with diabetes. Now, this is one of those things. I mean, Dre, are you with me? This is one of those things where if you don't have clean air, fresh water, and healthy food, I mean, what else is there,
That's right. That is definitely, it should be the top of the issues as far as everyone is concerned. We do have an audience question from one Twitch member.
Yeah, sure. Let's see it. And please keep me posted on the time too. I can't see the timer from my computer.
We're about 21 minutes in right now.
Okay, great.
Tasmus 11 says, would you fashion yourself as a sovereign citizen?
Yeah, well, I believe in sovereignty. Unfortunately, I have a social security number, right? And I don't think there's an easy way to get rid of it. So I'm familiar with the straw straw man concept of being a sovereign citizen. I don't know how to fix the problem. I'm already part of the system. I believe that we ought to all be sovereign people. So it's kind of where I'm at. I do have friends that have not gotten Social Security numbers for their kids, and I think it's great. I believe that that we have a responsibility as a people and even as a government, if we choose that, to ensure that we're able to provide for one another and to care for the people that are most vulnerable. But Social Security in particular, I think, is what was one of the first things to kind of subjugate the people. And it's a Ponzi scheme. It doesn't even work. I mean, if we want something like that, it should be a legitimate pension system or a savings plan, and we'll get into that. So I hope that answers the question.
That's all I got for you so far.
What's that?
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay, so I also believe that liberty is affordable housing. I mean, liberty, these are basic rights, right? I mean, air, water, food, shelter. These are Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And so we don't have affordable housing anymore. About 10 million, last check, about 7 million people prior to the coronavirus were actually living in their cars, and they're not counted as homeless. So, and if you look at the chart on the right, you can see that we've had not one, but now two housing bubbles. And this is tied to the Federal Reserve in terms of their asset reinflation. And that leads to job loss, incarceration, drug use, mental and physical health disorders, and much, much higher taxes. I guess that's the point I really want to make here. The Federal Reserve is entrapping America with taking away our liberty, and we're driving up taxes as a result. You can have a fair wage, but without having living wage laws. If we each owned a share in the Fed, we'd be better off, and I'll get into that. But right now, the wages versus the cost of living, right? If you're a male full-time worker, in 1985, it took only, I think it was under 30 weeks to pay for all of your everyday expenses, right? So whereas now it's 53 weeks, and there's only 52 weeks in a year. So the average worker today, the average male worker, doesn't have enough time in the year at the current wage to actually raise a family. And I believe that is one of the biggest issues that this country is facing, because families break down as a result of stress from money and sex typically. And if you don't have enough money to care for a family, you're gonna end up with lots of stress. You probably end up in divorce. You may be looking at bankruptcy at some point. You may be more inclined to turn to crime, drug use, etc. And I think even mass shootings is something that is a symptom of the fact that the money is concentrated entirely at the top as a result of our current Federal Reserve system.
Joe, are you trying to share your screen right now?
Yes.
It's not displaying.
Okay. Let's see here.
There we go.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that, Ray. Now, this is something that most libertarians are going to know. The dollar is down 99% since 1971. Now, if you look at online and you say, oh, well, is there a study that shows that? You're going to find 1,000,001 studies that say this is not the case. But the simplest study is to say, what was the value of gold in 1971? And what is the value of gold today? And in 1971, the value of gold was right around $35-40 an ounce. And today, it's closer to $1,750, I think, was the last check on Friday, right around $1,750. So if you take $1,750 minus the $40, and then you divide one into the other, you come up with a total loss, which means that all of us have to work harder and longer just to stand in place. And so that is a deprivation of liberty. So I believe that, as Lincoln said, the liberty is protection against a vicious inflationary bank-owned currency. And then he said that in his monetary policy speech. Now, liberty also is definitely not a stay-at-home order. As a result of the coronavirus, which I believe has been used as a tool of oppression, we've got 23 million that are on the unemployment rolls. And then President Trump likes to claim that 30 million, at least at last count, jobs were saved as a result of the Paycheck Protection Program. But the irony here is that if it was 30 million and we had 2 rounds of the PPP, let's use his numbers. Let's call it 60 million people whose jobs have been saved. They've only been saved because the government bailed them out. So in other words, we now have over 80 million Americans, which is over half of the workforce, because it's 150 million Americans in the workforce, close to half of the workforce that are now on government support. And this is indicative of a system that I think that you would agree, if you have to bail out the entire economy because we've got a virus or we've got a pandemic or a natural disaster or war, then you've got a system that just isn't working. Not only that, but the governmental response has been to limit our First Amendment rights of assembly and speech as a result. We have a Third Amendment right to personal privacy, but if you go to the IRS Get My Payment tool, you will see that it says, quote, use of this system constitutes consent to monitoring, interception, recording, reading, copying, or capturing of all activities, and that we have no right to privacy in the system. But it doesn't explain what the system is. It doesn't say only the IRS Get My Payment tool. And some people will defend, okay, well, you're getting money. I can't think of a single good reason why the United States government needs to take away our rights just to give us money. That's just not how it's supposed to work. That's not liberty. And so this is effectively what they did with this system is they reauthorized the Patriot Act. And in doing so, they eliminated our Third Amendment right to privacy and our Fourth Amendment right to be secure in our communications and our property. So I hope you see we're painting a picture here, right? Liberty is also public transparency. I mean, we have no transparency right now. Everything is hidden behind classification. We don't even know if the president has a conflict of interest financially or not because he didn't even disclose his tax returns. Now, there used to be a rule, a constitutional rule dating back to 1926 called a void for vagueness doctrine. And that rule that required that all laws are clear, objective, and easily understood. Now, if that were the case today, we wouldn't have anywhere near as many laws as we have. They would be far easier to understand, and we wouldn't have millions of people behind bars indefinitely. What I'm proposing is that we actually have an Amendments for America package. The first and foremost and most important, I think, is the Void for Vagueness Amendment, in which we make this a constitutional amendment to require that every single law adheres to that former rule that was nullified under the Patriot Act, that all laws are clear, objective, and easily understood. And I would take it a step further that we open source government so that we can make sure that all government operations are objective and verifiably so as a result of that transparency. And I would say that everything in government, everything, with the sole exception of military matters, only under an open declaration of war should be open source. And in doing so, we would be more secure as a nation, both in our liberty and in our security, because when the difference between open source and closed source, when you expose your flaws to the world tells you what your flaws are, and it's easier for us to fix them at that point. Whereas if we don't do that, we have to rely on a few people, hopefully smart people in a room, and hope that they are doing the right thing. And you end up creating a police state, which I believe is what we have right now. And as a result, we end up losing our rights. So it's kind of an either or proposition. We either open up our government and strengthen our government and our liberty as a result, or we keep what I believe is a growing security state that is taking away our rights, and really already has. So what I'm proposing is that we get back to basics. We have a liberty, justice, and a constitution for all, and we apply it evenly to all people. Because I believe that liberty is government that is trustworthy. We should be able to trust our government, but we cannot do so unless we know, as Reagan said, trust but verify. Unless we can verify, objectively verify that government is trustworthy, we can't trust government. Now, that's kind of the basics, right? Now, a lot's happened in the last 20 years since 9/11. But it started even before that. Right? We had secret FISA courts established in 78. There were the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act created the secret court system. And in doing so, they rendered void the Fifth Amendment right to due process, the Sixth and Seventh Amendment rights to trial by jury, and an Eighth Amendment right to a prohibition against excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. And those secret courts created and helped to create a stacked public court system. And that stacked public court system helped to overturn our election system. And now corporations own our elections. And as a result, they continue to undermine our First Amendment rights. And those same corporations are now censoring our speech, which we're seeing with the coronavirus. We're seeing with Facebook and Twitter, and they're taking down our posts. And that is because, now I know there's a lot of people don't like this. So listen, I don't believe that either party is the right choice. I don't like President Trump, and I don't like Vice President Biden as a candidate either. Anybody who supports the Patriot Act and the Federal Reserve is no bueno in my book. Now, President Trump, he appointed an FCC chair in 2017 that repealed net neutrality, and then he appointed 2 justices to the Supreme Court, both with less than the 2/3 Senate majority, which was a constitutional or a precedent dating back to the Civil War, which was first abandoned in 91. But he appointed the 3rd and 4th justices under that so-called nuclear option. And as a result, when net neutrality was challenged in the court system and it got all the way up to the Supreme Court simply ruled not to rule on the decision. So they upheld the lower court's ruling. And as a result, now our freedom of speech and assembly is effectively gone. When you throw in a bunch of other things, like the internet is controlled by 3 corporations and all internet traffic flows through the tier 1 backbone of AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint, then you recognize that perhaps it's very, very possible that everything we see and hear could fall into the category of fake news, which is the reason why President Trump talks about it so much. So, everything started again. It was September 11th, and the objective was for a new Pearl Harbor. They wanted to upgrade our military force and posture. And 45 days later, extreme thought is now considered a crime. They passed the Patriot Act, which made extreme thought a crime. So no longer did it require violent actions. And now it was just a thought, like Thought Police, like 1984, like Minority Report, if you watch that movie. Mass surveillance, we know that from Snowden, loss of due process. And so now as a result, basically your 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th amendment rights are gone. 8th Amendment right is gone. And we know the 9th and the 10th Amendment rights protect the rights of the people and reserve rights to the people and to the state and local government. The Patriot Act undermines all of that. And if you think they're not coming for your guns, because that's a Second Amendment right, they are coming for your guns because, and I don't have a slide for this, but a Michigan judge appointed by a Republican recently ruled that our rights are not absolute. And again, going back to the start of our country, we would not have a United States of America without the Bill of Rights, which means that the Bill of Rights was intended to be an absolute, a list of some absolute rights, but not an exhaustive list as we see in the 9th and 10th Amendments. So today, instead of protecting our liberty with clean air, fresh water, healthy food, money that maintains value over time with affordable housing and a citizen dividend, today instead we build walls instead of bridges. We separate parents from children at the borders, and we set the precedent to to do the same for the American people. So the question here, and this might be a good time to take a break if there are any questions from the audience, and if not, I'll go ahead and continue. But do we have anything?
We actually do have a question, and I know my answer to this question, but what is yours? What is the lowest acceptable minimum wage?
0, actually. And I think that we can accomplish that because if we own our own money and every citizen is getting a dividend from the gross national product, you can actually eliminate the minimum wage and still accomplish something akin to, let's say, $15 an hour. So I think that the key here and what we can accomplish by ending the Fed and going green instead is the elimination and repeal of, I don't know, 50, 75%, like majority of the legislation on the books, because most of that is the result of problems that were created by the fact that we don't own our money. But when we own our own money, we actually will end up having a vote in how things work. We'll end up getting a piece of the gross national product, and we'll all be wealthy and a heck of a lot healthier as a result. And so we won't need a lot of these rules and laws that are on the books that were put in place as kind of a Band-Aid on top of a cut without addressing the actual cause. And the cause was the Federal Reserve in the first place.
Sorry, Finn, I was muted. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that people think that we just need to keep raising and raising and raising it, and people have a right to live at this wage, and it's just absolute. That's the bottom line. And we forget how and why that all became a thing. And I actually myself kind of do on occasion. I'm drawing a blank right now, honestly. But I know that it was, good intentions, I'm sure. But, who does it hurt most? The low-skilled, low-wage earner.
Yeah, yes, and it also hurts business owners because every time you raise the minimum wage, you end up eliminating jobs. The real issue here is not so much the wage. The real issue is the fact that money tends to lose value over time, and therefore we have no objective measurement of value and no objective means of transferring value and storing value. And so if we were to replace our inflationary system, or as Lincoln said, our vicious currency, if we replace our vicious currency with a system that retains value over time, and I prefer to have it backed by nature because gold is good in a certain way, but it doesn't account for all the what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank at this point, but there's a negative externalities. The gold does not take into consideration the negative externalities related to depriving or debasing our capital base. And when I say capital base, I'm talking about our stock of clean air, our stock of fresh water, our stock of good soil that helps produce healthy food. This is natural capital that needs to be accounted for in our system, and our current system doesn't do it. And that's the reason. That's the biggest problem. That and the fact that they're inflating away the value creates a constant need to increase wages over time in order to keep up on the treadmill. But it doesn't address the underlying cause of the fact that the Fed is intentionally devaluing our money in order to keep us subjected to slavery over time. And that's the real issue here. What do you think about that, Dre? I mean, I'm presenting, but what do you think?
Excuse me. I would absolutely agree. We have another comment from Zygmunt Reinbach. I hope I'm saying that right. He says, when you increase minimum wage while also increasing welfare benefits, you disincentivize people from finding meaningful employment.
And I believe that is a false, that is another one of the false concepts that's been promoted by our economists employed at universities across the country who are on the payroll. I don't believe it. The issue here is, let's look at today, for example. You've got all those, we have 20 some odd, 80 million people that are effectively on government support as a result of Trump's brilliant handling of the coronavirus, and as a result of what I would probably argue is a democratic attack in some ways as well, because I think that this is probably another topic for another day, but whether or not there really is a pandemic is something I think worthy of exploring. But whenever you have welfare recipient or welfare or money that's given out, let's call it unemployment, let's call it, in this case, the unemployment is $600 a week. But if you go back to work, you stop getting it. That's the problem. That's what disincentivizes people from going to work. And I think that the issue here is whether or not we believe in compulsory work, or, which another word for that is called slavery, or do we believe in freedom? And personally, I believe in liberty and freedom, liberty, equality, opportunity, and freedom, not compulsion. I don't believe in slavery. And I think that's the system that we have. And that's what everybody keeps talking about when they say, oh, well, welfare means you don't have to go to work. No, what they're saying is the system, the way it's set up, is a disincentive to work. But if you own a share of the national product through the ownership in the Fed and a citizen dividend, you don't have to not work to get that. You should be able to do both. Instead, a properly structured program would encourage people to go to work and encourage people to become wealthier, because it's not money that you have to give up. So that's, I believe that there's a lot of people have been overeducated and miseducated, I believe, is what's really happening. And I can say that with certainty. My economics professor at one of the schools that I attended, he laughed off the idea that the Federal Reserve is a private bank. And even though it said so on their own website, right? So, these people they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere, and they're lying to us. And so that's why I think that President Trump is as popular as he is and within his own party, because half of what he says is true. The problem is the other half of what he says isn't. And it's difficult to discern what's true and what's not. The reality is we do have a system of fake news. 100%, he's right about that. And it's not just fake news, but there's a lot of education that's misinformed too. I want to just kind of drive home this point. And Dre, what's the time check on this?
Ahead and let's hear your last point, and then I want you to go ahead and tell people how they can find you and keep up with what you're up to.
Oh wow! So we're out of time, huh?
We're running up on the clock. We are a little bit.
How much time do I have here?
You have a couple minutes.
All right. So let me just drive home the point here. The golden rule: whoever is making the money makes the rules. And if we don't like the rules, we need to change those rules. So the objective is to end the Fed and go green instead. And the way we do that is to change the ownership structure of the Federal Reserve to a credit union, so that every citizen has an equal ownership stake in our economy, so that we can get off of oil and out of oil wars, and so we can invest into renewables and organics instead. We can open source our credit system to make sure that it's objective and verifiable, and so that we know for a fact that the closed source, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian aren't still redlining. That's entirely possible. They can be doing that. When we do this, what we will do is we will freeze and seize the Fed assets. So at least 50% of our total debt is owned by the Federal Reserve. Another 25% is intragovernment debt, and about 25% is foreign debt. When we freeze and seize the Fed, we will be able to cancel the intragovernment debt and take the $12 trillion in assets that the Fed has and redeploy that in the form of a universal savings account to the people, and that money can be invested for healthcare, for retirement, and for the environment all at the same time. And we will also end debt as money, and so our total debt at that point will be closer to $6 trillion as opposed to $25 trillion and counting, courtesy of the coronavirus. So the summary so instead we replace the Fed with a credit union of the United States. It's a citizen ownership, gives every citizen a dividend. It's money that's backed by nature. It's stable value, and we can account for the negative externalities of depleting our natural capital. By open sourcing our monetary system, we can reduce corruption and improve transparency. And then, if anyone has any questions about how we do it, it's very similar to the way crypto is done. You do an ICO, and people don't know this, but that's exactly how the Federal Reserve launched back in 1913. They more or less conducted an off-chain ICO. It's a fundraising mechanism where you create a company and you allow people to subscribe and put the money in, and that's exactly what we would do here. And we would allow up to, we would back it by nature, and we would use natural assets like land and water, and we would geotag it. And I've got a whole paper done on this, and I created it when I was doing Ruth Loans. But again, I would talk about the Void for Vagueness Amendment and the Planet-Friendly Money Amendment. I think these are absolutely imperative if we are going to restore liberty in America. And I have this information on my website at libertystrikesback.com. So when we end the Fed and go green instead, we will restore liberty in America for the first time since 1913. We will be able to know with confidence that we will have clean air, fresh water, healthy food, affordable housing, a fair wage, a smaller government, and an ownership stake in our economy, which is absolutely critical. Until we do that, we'll end up in endless oil wars, and we'll end up being poisoned, which is exactly what we talked about at the beginning. 141 million Americans living in conditions of bad air, diabetes, and overweight. We can end all that. Whoever has the money makes the rules. It's time to end the Fed and go green instead. So thank you for your time, Dre. I appreciate you listening. Appreciate the questions from the audience. Go to libertystrikesback.com to get involved. And you know what? If you are a delegate for the Libertarian Party, I would appreciate your support this weekend. I would love to be the nominee of the party. And in doing so, I believe that we can call out the corrupt two-party system and let America know that this is our one-time opportunity to get rid of the Patriot Act, which Trump could have done if he wanted to when he had the largest Republican majority in GOP history since 1929, and he didn't do it. We get rid of the Patriot Act. Let's end the Fed. Let's go green instead and create a healthy, wealthy, and free America. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for being with us, Joe. And that was a great talk. I look forward to speaking with you more in the future. Good luck to you.
Good, thank you.
All right. All right, guys. Next up, come back in just a few minutes. We will have Chrissy Wickers. She's coming to us to talk to us about free market activism. See you later.
Oh yeah, don't do that again. Hey everyone. So we had a bit of a mix-up with hosts on this one, and I know all of you are getting a little impatient in the chat. So I'm just gonna badly introduce our next guest, which is fine because I absolutely hate her. Chrissy is a longtime activist who is going to be here to talk to you about how to activism properly. And I know that's a terrible introduction, but I don't have the sheets that everyone else did. Chrissy, what's up?
What's up, buddy?
Oh, no sound. Oh, no. Just a second. We will get this fixed. She's a professional podcaster. She'll fix this.
You can't hear me? Oh my gosh.
Oh, you know what? I know why there's no sound. Because my thing unplugged. It's not you. I'm sorry. One moment.
Aren't you?
There we go.
You're a professional podcaster. What's wrong with you? This is why my podcast is better than yours.
Oh, I think you guys just stole our gimmick.
Okay, two hot bitches talking shit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because you're totally a hot bitch, right?
I mean, everyone else on the show is. All right, so there you go. This is Chrissy. She's going to talk to you, and I'm going to go away. So you guys have fun.
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like it's just us. No hosts. That's okay. We can do this without a host. Again, my name is Chrissy Wickers. I have been an activist for about 16 years. I have worked within the Libertarian Party, in the environmental movement, in the health food movement. So I got my start back in 2008 with the anti-Iraq and anti-war marches. Went on to work for Ron Paul for 4 years, and then started working with the Occupy movement. I organized Occupy Portland. We had over 2,500 people camp out for 5 weeks. We were able to get a lot done, oddly enough. The Occupy movement was kind of decentralized. Each state kind of took their own and ran with it. So after that, I got pretty involved in the March Against Monsanto movement. It was against not only GMOs, but glyphosate, which is the main ingredient in Roundup. And from there, I've been working with the Libertarian Party. I ran for office in 2018 for state representative. And so that's just a little bit of my background. So kind of what I wanted to talk about is activism. When people think activism, they think standing out on the corner with a sign, right? That is activism, that's protesting, but it's so much more than that. A protest, a demonstration like that, where you're holding signs, you're marching, you're, outside of the State House, or you're outside of, whatever places whatever place you're protesting, you stand with signs. That's the first kind of step. After that, after these like-minded individuals get together, that's when you get into the fun stuff. So I definitely wanted to bring up free market activism. This is stuff that actually works. Not much gets done when you're standing on the corner with a sign. So examples of this. Back when we did Occupy Portland, we wanted to make a real difference. They had passed a law in Portland, an anti-camping ordinance, and they made it illegal to camp outside. Anywhere that was public or could be within a certain amount of feet in front of a business. So that made it really hard for people who were homeless to not get arrested, go to jail. Maybe they have a job, they're not able to get back to their job because of this ordinance. And that's ridiculous. You're basically making being homeless illegal. You're already going after a a marginalized group. It's ridiculous. So at Occupy, what we did is we went to a private business owner who owned an empty lot in downtown Portland, and we asked if we could purchase it. We raised a lot of money during Occupy, and we wanted to use it for good. So we purchased this land, and we set up a homeless camp. So we made it so it was safe. We had volunteers that would stay there. And it's actually still going on today. The homeless pay $1 to get in. It helps, maintain the cleanliness. It helps pay the fees for the lot. And that actually worked. Until a bunch of businesses around got upset. They're like, oh my gosh, there's a homeless camp in the middle of downtown Portland. So they decided to go all up in arms And so what did the city have to do? Because there was no place for these people to go. They had to repeal that law. So not only did they repeal that law, but we ended up suing and winning that lot. So we were able to still do that. So both, we got two things done with just one action. And that's, a more minor localized example. What we did with March Against Monsanto, the main goal of that movement was to label genetically modified foods. And instead of, I'm a libertarian. I don't believe in mandates. I don't believe the government should have to get involved. And if the government's involved, who would be in charge of labeling? The FDA. The FDA is infiltrated with Monsanto execs. What is the point of having them in charge of labeling? So instead of going that route and asking for the government to label, we decided to then use the free market. We had over 3 million likes on Facebook at one point. Who do you think would be the main demographic that we're going after with these targeted, protests? Obviously, moms. Moms buy food. Moms care about what they're feeding their children. So a lot of these moms were stay-at-home moms, so it was really easy to talk them into having targeted boycotts on different companies to get them to label GMOs. After about 2 years of doing this, we targeted Cheerios, we targeted Del Monte, we targeted Similac formula, things that we feed our children. And within a year of doing that, all of those companies started labeling. A lot of them actually started taking GMOs out. And through all of this, a new organization came up called the Non-GMO Project Verified, or Non-GMO Verified Project. What they do is it's a free market labeling initiative. Now it's independently run, so there's no FDA collusion that you have to worry about, and they've gained a lot of trust of consumers over the years. So they actually label these foods for us. So that's a way to use the free market to for activism. Another example of that would be what we encourage people to do. Buy stocks, buy shares in these companies, and you can go to these shareholder meetings and you have a voice. When people say vote with your wallet, they don't mean just buying products and not buying products, but actually put your money towards it. These people don't care that we're standing outside their headquarters with signs. They really don't. What they care about is their pocketbook. So that's where we hit them, where it hurts, right? Where they get their money from. Why am I against GMOs? Okay, so I'll answer this question before we move on, because this isn't a fun one. So I'm not inherently against GMOs. I think, the GM rice is a really good idea. It helps a lot of people who are malnourished be able to have better vision. There's plenty of good examples of GMOs. However, that's not the majority of what's grown in this country. In this country, the majority of GM products, or GM crops grown, are either pesticide producing or herbicide resistant. And what that means is on the pesticide producing, that means the insecticide's grown on the inside, right? So that's what we're eating. Now, I honestly think the worst one is the herbicide resistant crops. Now, those are made to be sprayed directly with Roundup. You don't, and we've sprayed Roundup before. Everyone's used weed killers, right? When we spray, it kills everything. And we're spraying that directly on our food. Now, this isn't just some one-off, and who knows if it really hurts you. There's plenty of studies, there's plenty of lawsuits now showing that glyphosate, which is the main ingredient in Roundup that's being sprayed directly on the crops, the main ingredient, glyphosate, is actually killing people. It's giving people non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's causing a whole host of other issues. And that's why Monsanto has had to pay out millions of dollars, because they knew this was happening. Internal memos came out showing that this was happening. And so when the majority of the GM products in the United States is being sprayed with glyphosate, there's a problem with those GM products. Now, those crops include soybeans and corn. what is in everything in the grocery store? Just about. I mean, you have high fructose corn syrup, you have soybean oil, you have all of these different products that contain GMOs, right? So maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you're just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to eat it anyway. That's fine. That's totally fine. That's your right. You can eat whatever you want. The problem we were having though is that these were being hidden. And there are consumers who they don't want to eat GMOs. But how are they to know if it's in there if it's not labeled, right? And now all of these food companies came together and said, we don't want to label, it costs too much money. Okay, labels change consistently for the purpose of marketing, right? We were just asking for a few words, contains GMOs. That's it. So why wouldn't they want to label? Why would they spend millions of dollars to fight labeling? Because they don't want us to know. We have rights as consumers to know what we're ingesting. And if something, especially if something is dangerous and people are dying because they're eating this specific GMO, then they have the right to know before they feed that to their children. And you have the right to still buy it. You can still buy it. It can still be in the grocery store. No one's asking for them to not be available for all of us to eat. We just want to know first. And I don't think that that's a problem. Now, and of course, we can get back to Monsanto and why Monsanto sucks specifically. They're the makers of these two types of GM products, the pesticide producing and herbicide resistant. They've also made PCBs, DDT, Agent Orange, and there's a really fun, if you do a Venn diagram of all of those products, they have like a few things in common, right? One, that they've killed people, and two, they've been banned. And so when this company is still making stuff like this, you get a little, wary, and then you go into their internal memos. Luckily, FOIA requests and subpoenas got all of this information. Come to find out, they knew that glyphosate and GM products were killing people, and they didn't care, and they kept doing it. So that's why they're getting sued, and that's why they're paying out millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So, and I mean, that's just the health problems. That's not including the practice of monocropping, because farmers aren't able to rotate their crops as easily because of what the GM seeds do to the fields, and they'd have no incentive to anymore. There's the problem of taking advantage of people by signing these outrageous contracts and, not even allowing these farmers to replant their seeds. Not that they could anyway, because a lot of them aren't able to, you're not able to replant them. So, and then the fun part about Monsanto again is just recently they merged with Bayer. That's right, the pharmaceutical company. So now Bayer, Monsanto, makes our food and they make our medicine. And if you think that's fine, then that's totally awesome. So, I mean, I'm go ahead and eat them all you want. However, I should have the right to choose not to eat GMOs. I should have the right to choose if my family eats them. So again, we didn't ask the government for a label. We actually, the funny part is the government, Debbie Stabenow and Mike Pompeo, actually, when he was still a senator, they co-sponsored a bill to ban states from labeling GMOs. That's how scared of everything they were. So it's not even legal for states to label GMOs. So we went the free market way. We asked companies to either remove or label. And a lot of companies did remove, and what companies didn't, labeled. And we were fine with that. Because, it's hard to avoid GMOs all of the time. But if I know that that's what I'm eating, then I'm fine with that. I'm a consumer. I have the right to be informed. So yeah. So that's my long answer to why I was a part of March Against Monsanto and have been, and again, not inherently against GMOs, but against the main GMOs that are grown here in the United States. Also, a fun mention is they are banned in multiple countries. So that's kind of weird, right? Okay, funny. Okay. Funny comment. However, you guys, it's just common sense. Everyone should be able to make an informed decision, right? So through my activism with March Against Monsanto, I've been arrested a few times. I got arrested in the city of Ann Arbor for organizing a March Against Monsanto protest. We had over 2,000 people attend, and we applied for a permit about 3 months ahead of time. Now, they decided that last minute not to approve our protest. What was I supposed to tell 2,000 people? The government said no. That's how you get 4,000 people. So I just didn't say anything. We had our protest. Everything was great. We're marching about healthy food. Again, these kind of demonstrations are to bring people together, to get like-minded people in the same area so you can develop plans on moving forward. While we were there, we had people speaking with a megaphone. And because of the megaphone, I got arrested for unlawful use of amplified sound. And I got to go to jail for 9 hours until the protesters actually, the rest of the protesters came down and bailed me out. So we were able to actually take that opportunity and then sue the city of Ann Arbor for unlawful detention. And we ended up winning the right to protest without a permit. So the previous requirements where you had to pay about $1,200, you had to get $500,000 in event insurance. It was pretty outrageous. Even though we went through those steps, they were still able to deny it. And why do I need a permit to protest? So we were able to get that handled. And now you can do that in the city of Ann Arbor without a permit. With Occupy, I was arrested by the federal government because we were on federal land. Homeland Security came. That one was really fun, but luckily all of that got dropped too because again, I don't need a permit to exercise my right. Someone says I don't have a right to be informed. I absolutely do. Why wouldn't I have the right to be informed of what I'm putting into my body? That doesn't even make any sense. So, to continue down that route, now I'm in the Libertarian Party. The part of taxation is theft, right? Is that taxation is theft. So I believe that 100%. And joining the Libertarian Party, we've been able to kind of use it as a vehicle to deliver this message. That's why I'm really glad to see Dan doing this, Dan Berman, as he's running for president, using his platform to be able to bring that message to people. That's a form of activism. What he does is a form of activism, and it definitely works.
Sorry, everyone. That's technical difficulties. We did not cut off the stream. Chrissy will hopefully be coming back soon. Yeah, the government caught on and killed the stream. Does anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts about how everything's gone? Dan's coming up here. I think he saw that everything. Dan, get in here and help me. I'm trying to get her back in. What are my unicorns called? They don't have names. They're just the herd. Oof, can't get in. Working on it. All right, we are trying to solve the problem. It's been a very, very long 2 days. I'm really sorry, everyone. I'm exhausted. And all of our hosts are exhausted. She is coming back in. What am I going to call my pony? So the coolest... So, here we go. My pony is going to be named Jewel after... My camera's off. There. That's better. They're the unicorn in Chronicles of Narnia in the last book is named Jewel. And that unicorn went down fighting shoulder to shoulder with his friends. And it was beautiful. And I want my pony to be fearless and badass like that too. So my pony will be Jewel. Thank you for your question. I'm really not good at solo streams, guys. I'm sorry. Can I get somebody else? We do have Track B going right now. I won't be offended if you bail off and go over there. If you're watching us on Twitch, Track B is not on Twitch because Twitch will only let us do one track at a time. So we've got Track A and B are on Facebook and YouTube. Tim's trying to get his stuff working too. Give me a thumbs up if you're good. Okay.
New solutions and possibilities. That
Hey,
I can hear the sound from the other stream.
Go to business.
can you hear me though?
Everything in this room,
Yeah.
everything in your
All right, here, look.
everything
So,
that you are using to look at this video right now.
all right,
is the idea of somebody.
so we were trying to figure this out at one point because
Could you create a better service? You
I've got
could
both
advance all
tracks play. I can't close the other one because I'm running the stream on that one, and I can't lower the volume on it without disabling all the sound from all the tabs.
You could. Oh wait, yeah. If the sound is running through your system, then you would be able to close it because you have to be like active. In it.
Yeah, and I can barely, I can barely hear you.
We could become famous if we buy followers, primes, and viewers on adviewers.com.
How much?
I think we should shut this one down for a half hour. I'll bring it back up when we come back with the next one. I'm exhausted.
So
There's an extension in Chrome that allows.
she said it's just a background. Are you calling in from Mexico? I get that sometimes. No, she's so like I get this a lot when I go to websites. Because I'm in Mexico, they firewall IPs that are not from the United States. I was actually trying to order you a pizza, and I was getting that yesterday.
Yeah.
Because fucking Pizza Hut was trying to redirect me to the Mexico site. Yeah, what the hell? Okay, let me try to give her the URL again.
Yeah, so someone's saying there's an extension in Chrome that allows a volume mixer. We are running 1 million volume mixers right now. That's the problem.
We're getting a what?
Someone was saying that there's a extension in Chrome that has like a volume mixer. Right now we are running so many volume.
Oh, yeah. Let me try to install it right now and fuck up both streams. No, but that is really interesting. I have something like that for my system, but I don't have anything like that for my. And like I'm really paranoid that I'm like talking over them. And
where can I get the swag Dan is wearing?
Where's it? What?
Where can they get the swag that you're wearing?
Where can you get this?
Your hat.
Oh,
Shirt.
Oh yeah. Go to taxationistheft.cards.
Why is it?
And it should be right there on the homepage. These ones are actually awesome. We have them custom made. There's my black market haircut, which I did myself. It's actually like a really you can't really see it from here, but it's like the 3D letters. They're like really extruded on there. Yeah, she's saying she can't get in. Okay.
I mean, if you can wrangle Caleb and Scott and whoever that other person was, we can start do a 90-minute comedy podcast.
We might have to do that. She says Facebook is working. That's so weird.
Hey, right? That's what we're doing right now?
Okay, let me try. I want to see what happens if I open this in a new window. I actually want to see. Oh, she's restarting her router.
No.
So this is the
Puppy. At least the ears of a puppy.
Yeah.
Is the ears of a puppy like the lips of an angel?
Like a what?
The lips of an angel? Why are you calling me?
I can't hear. It's okay. So yeah, she said Facebook is working, but it's okay. Oh, I haven't. Oh, an echo because okay, yeah, never mind. I'm gonna close that. That was stupid.
It's funny because we're somehow gaining viewers.
They're tuning in for me. What can I say? They're my people.
Yeah, they see. Man, there's Dan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here I'm gonna use this opportunity to make some plugs. Actually, here. You know what? Let's do this. If you go to, I'm gonna share my screen. Hang on a second. I have no idea what I'm doing here.
This level of audio feedback.
But I can hear you talking, but I can't hear what you're saying. I mean, like, barely. Just speak up when you talk, son. Speak into the microphone.
I'm saying I can't wait to hear this level of audio feedback.
Oh. Okay. So this is the website, taxationstuff.cards. This is the shop. This is where like all the cool stuff is. This is where It's Not Gay If It's TSA came from. Yes, I had that first before anybody else. I invented that. I even bought the domain name for a while, but I think that's gone. Okay, but what did I want to show you here? I wanted to show you this. Okay, so first of all, if you come here, there's the hat. It's a bad picture of the hat, but it's the hat. We also have umbrellas and beach towels and flags. Flags are really cool. If you go up here to shop shirts, I just added these. So if you notice on the other stream, oh shit, that's not black, that's navy blue. That's the wrong picture. Dre has made this lovely tank top famous. This is available in the store. And then we've got the official Titfest and Chill.
Everyone on Facebook has bailed off, but like Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube are going up. I don't know. Here we go. Everyone just wants to watch the train wreck.
So we also have. Oh, that's why. That's not even the right picture for that. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I click on that. Ah, that's why. Okay, yeah. So there you go. That's the Taxation Stuff Fest tank top. And then we have the. I gotta fix that. That's not the right picture that's on there. But that is the shirt you will get. And this is the tank top. And then of course we have it in regular t-shirt style. Just to prove to all your friends that you were here at Titfest, you bought this t-shirt. Go ahead and get one of these. This actually helps everything. I know everyone's always like, yeah, go to our Patreon and give us money for our Patreon. And I'm like, why? So you can hear me talk even more? Because I know nobody likes hearing me talk. Don't go to my Patreon. Spend your money here, and you'll actually get something in return, a t-shirt.
I'm going to need you to at me next time with that one. Jeez.
What's that?
I'm going to need you to at me next time with that one.
The Patreon? What's your Patreon? Plug it. So Zach here, my friend, likes to sell stuff on Patreon where you get absolutely nothing in return. No, I'm not gonna say that.
Actually, most of our money comes from Twitch now.
Oh. Well, Twitch. Wait, do you have to pay for that? How's that work?
So we just got affiliate, so people can subscribe to us for money and like give us donations in chat. And for whatever reason, people get like this huge boner about like trying to outdo each other in donations in chat. And we had like 3 people. The first week that we were able to do it was last week, and we had like 3 people donating and giving away subscriptions and everything. And it's like, wow, we made like $35 in one night, which was huge for us.
That sounds really cool. So what is your and just so you know, I'm not just plugging anybody, even though the whole point of this Tit Fest is to plug everybody. Zach is actually, he's been so kind to help us produce 24 hours worth of live streams, which is absolutely fucking insane. Ah, there you go. Drunken Disorder.
I had it all down. Dude, I've been a mess. This one, because I didn't have a host, my sound wasn't working right. My headset wasn't even plugged in for a little bit. Like, it was a mess.
Tech issues out the wazoo. Like, okay, so yesterday we were interviewing, Tom Queter was speaking, and his internet went out for the rest of the day, which never happens to him. And today, Chrissy is like firewalled from, what was she saying? Was she talking shit about the NSA?
She was talking shit about Monsanto.
Wow. Monsanto is fucking powerful. They knocked her internet out. But just, I mean, like, she can get to the
ask her if she can go into her StreamYard, because I know that they have theirs.
She said her whole site. Can you go? Okay, everybody's going to tune in now because the Monsanto conspiracy is unfolding.
Can I change the stream to Down with Monsanto? I could edit some of the. You know what I should have been doing if I was a better producer?
Sorry, I'm listening to both of you talk at the same time, and I heard a thank you, and I was like, okay, good. He's got, Brandon has a litany of questions himself, he says.
Oh, don't worry, we heard.
I just wanted to, like, make sure, like, oh shit, do I need to switch stuff now? So I'm okay. So I'm reading. Yeah, Christy says she can't get to the website. Okay, so I'm gonna tell her. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring her onto the Taxation is Theft show this week because she said I never get to talk about the cool stuff. So I guess she never gets to talk about it.
It's her own fault that she doesn't talk about the cool stuff.
So we'll have to do that. And I guess we'll just have to prepare for the next show, unless there's anything we can. What can we fill this time with? I mean, if you guys want, you can start early with the next show. We have. Let me check the schedule. We have. Yeah, I mean. Oh. It's not working at all. It's my internet.
So I might forego a really important conversation.
I don't know. Okay, no worries. We'll have you on the regular podcast this week. All right. That's our show, folks. No, but okay. So tonight on this channel, Track A, we're gonna have Joe Bannister. I gotta run in a second because I gotta manage the other track. I'm running the tech for the other track right now. Tonight, Joe Bannister is gonna be on at 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's in about two and a half hours. And in a half an hour, Zach was going to start a what were we gonna call this? A discussion.
A hopefully funny discussion with a couple comedians.
That's right, and I titled it "We Will Try to Make You Laugh."
We're gonna try to make you laugh. If you're easily offended, you want Track B, because Caleb is not the best person in the world.
And Track B will be. Right now, Nick Reed is talking. He actually it was really, really interesting. If you liked what Robin Corner had to say last night, Nick Reed had some really, really interesting things to say. But after Nick will be Kate, who has been actually hosting, she's going to give a little talk of her own on some really interesting things about how to live your life without government, marriage, kids, all that kind of stuff. So that should be really interesting too. But if you want to get offended, stay here. Okay. Can we still talk GMOs?
What time is Zach Foster?
Yeah, of course. Why
Foster is
not?
now, but on the other track.
What's that?
Someone's asking about Zach Foster. Zach Foster is now, but on the other track.
No, Zach Foster finished
Really?
like 40 minutes ago.
Oh man, I'm way behind. Sorry, Zach Foster was 40 minutes ago on the other track.
He finished 40 minutes ago on the other track. Yeah. All right. Well, you want to take a break?
Yeah,
It's almost break time anyway.
Just throw up the screen thing.
Yeah,
So-
let's do that, and then I gotta hop on over to the other track because they're gonna be wrapping up pretty soon.
Actually, I'm gonna bring the stream down because I want to test something when we come back online. Okay?
The stream? Oh,
Yeah.
the whole stream?
Yeah, because we got the other one running anyway.
But I wanted to go for 50 hours straight.
We already turned it off.
Any other questions, or do you have your own question? Oh yeah, I have.
What?
We've already turned it off a couple times.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but okay. I thought you meant like right now. I was like, wait, it says live. Okay, so we're gonna kill this. We're gonna kill this stream. But wait, I already gave. Oh no, I didn't. That's on the other stream. Okay, yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, come back here. We're gonna have Zach. Go to titfest.org. It's up there right now. Go to titfest.org, where you can get all of the live streams and how to get to them. We're gonna start this live stream back up in a minute with Zach and a couple buddies, and right after that, it's gonna be Joe Bannister, who is the awesome ex-IRS agent who is now working to completely dismantle the IRS because there's no law that says we have to pay income tax. He'll tell you all about that. He has a really amazing story, so you definitely want to check that one out. All right.
All right, we'll see you guys back in about 20 minutes.
Make like Time Warner Cable and cut me off.
Things that are going around social